Well, hi there, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 123. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Tasia Custodi.
I'm Jamie Reynolds.
I will silver.
Hey guys, great how you've
Hi.
changed. Oh my, how you've aged.
I feel like it, actually.
Didn't age well.
Oh wow,
Savage!
Shots fired.
We are off to a savage start. Gentlemen, let's keep this clean.
Not so gentle.
Greg couldn't be with us this evening. He has lost the capacity of speech, probably due to some extracurricular activities that hopefully he'll be filling us in on when he joins us next week.
Or a witch's
Fingers
curse
crossed.
so that he can get real man legs.
Speaking of witches, I saw somewhere. I saw it was an ad, or did I actually drive by? There was a bakery, and it was called Hansel and Gretel Bakery. And I'm like,
Nice.
have you read the fairy tale?
No, it's been deconstructed.
Okay.
It's deconstructed, so the meaning is all gone now.
Okay.
Excuse
Okay.
me.
Well, so if you want to find out more about real legs and making children into baking, you can join.
You do know that reference. I hope you guys know that reference.
No, the leg reference?
It's
probably from a comic book, isn't it?
No, it's from Little Mermaid.
I've never seen The
okay.
Little Mermaid.
Oh, okay. Well,
Jamie was holding out for the woke version.
Yeah. No, I had boys growing up I had two boys. They had no interest in watching The Little Mermaid.
Gender normative.
Yeah.
I was a boy. I went and saw it.
Yeah, we know about you, Will.
I just want to be a real boy when I
like
get up,
animation.
All right, so you can find out about it as momentous.tv/links or momentous.tv/team, and you can listen to this in your earballs at momentous.tv/podcast. As usual, let's start up with a little bit of follow-up. Well, I don't have an image here for you, but last week we talked about how, at X, one of the very rare single letter usernames owned by a fella that he wasn't sure how long it was going to last since Twitter officially rebranded as X. Well, yeah, they went and yoinked it, but they gave him, they offered him some merch, some swag, some Twitter or X swag, and a tour of the headquarters. And we don't know if there was anything that may be the subject of a non-disclosure agreement, but this guy was very agreeable and figured it was going to happen eventually anyway, because, it's all, property on rented land, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But then to drive home the rebrand launch of Twitter as X, which we, discussed in great detail last week here in Momentous Live, they thought they would kick it up a notch and install what, Tasia, on the roof of the Twitter headquarters, the X headquarters downtown San Francisco?
A giant light up X without any permits or permission to do so. It is on the roof of the building.
And it doesn't just light up; it lights up with the fire of 10,000 suns that appears.
It basically strobes. Like, it starts kind of from the middle, I think, and like strobes light out towards the end of the X's. I saw a video of one guy who lives like across from it. Do you guys remember the episode of Seinfeld where Kramer can't get any sleep because of, is it Kenny Rogers roasted chicken or whatever?
Fried chicken. Oh yeah.
Yes, but it's a red light. This is exactly what I thought of it, but except of a red light, it's a strobing white light.
Well, given that instead of what's happening, the new little tagline for tweeting out or Xing out or whatever the hell you're supposed to call it now, it's "Blaze your glory." So I guess that's what they were doing, is blazing their glory until they go out in a blaze of glory. We'll see what happens there. But it's been a little update to that, because it was installed without permission. It has now been taken down after, I guess, the San Francisco, the city of San Francisco said, nah, that's not going to fly. And the fact that there are, like, of course, residential apartments like right across, that's, yeah. I mean, but it's free publicity, right?
Exactly. Think about how many news stories were put out about that. It was everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, the sad side effect is, of course, it just reinforces people's priors about Twitter or X or Elon or all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those, hey, let's see what we can get away with for free publicity. But but it worked.
Mhm.
So all of that is just by way of a lead-in to another little story that Tasia has for us, for those who may be missing the Twitter icon and word on their phone's home screen now. If you've got the Twitter app installed, it's since been, if you have automatic updates on, it's since been replaced with the X icon and the letter X for the name. Apple even made an exception for Twitter because they hadn't really allowed single letter app names for whatever reason. So I wonder what dirt Elon has on Tim Cook, because Apple's still advertising on Twitter as well. So a lot of people expected, given Apple's like political leanings and whatnot, at least the parent ones, that they would not want to play in this game. But I guess it's still access to an audience for them. So X got their single letter app name. Tasia, what did you had? This inspired you to take on a project to help people restore their home screen to their former glory. And what's all that about?
You will never take me alive. I can't do it, you guys. I need the little Twitter Larry Bird. Larry is the bird's name, and I need little
Aw.
Larry in my life.
See what they did there.
So I just threw a little short, or if you're on Instagram, you can watch my reel on it. But it's basically using a little shortcut hack on iPhone. So long story short, just go ahead and save like a Twitter icon from anywhere on the web. Save it to your camera roll, and then I show you how to bring back the Twitter name and app icon on iOS using a shortcut. If you're like me and you just can't let it go, pry it from my cold dead hands.
And this is the sort of thing that people have done to like intensely customize their iOS home screens ever since Apple allowed that level of customization with an iOS update a few years ago. And some people have replaced the icons for every single app that they run. I remember doing that sort of thing like on my Mac back in the 90s when I had more time on my hands. But there's a lot of people who really enjoy customizations, and that's been one of the strengths of Android for all these years, is the ability to really make your home screen your own. So this is Tasia not going nuts, but just resisting in her own small way. So Tasia,
Yes.
good for you.
Thank you so much. Long live Larry.
Jamie, we look forward to you figuring out for Android users. Maybe it's not quite so involved to restore the Twitter icon. Do you know off the top of your head how you make custom icons or names?
No, I actually, as you were talking about it, I'm like, I wonder if I could do that. I don't really care enough to actually try.
Same.
But I'm sure there's some way that's you seem to be able to modify most anything you want to in Android. But that one I think I'll leave. I kind of like the X actually. It's kind of nice. I like change. I don't like things to stay the same. I like things to be renewed and refreshed and have something. Again, I think this actually is a good thing in the end for the X brand, the Twitter thing. I think it's going to actually drive more people to it, just with the marketing and everything else. And it seems to be, from what I understand, there seems to be another increase in traffic to X. But everybody likes to complain, but especially Tasia, apparently, about her home screen.
I'm not complaining. I'm simply restoring it to its intended format.
Right.
Well,
we fear change.
So part of change is everything old is new again. And hey, Will, get in, loser. It's 2004 again. It's one of our favorite catchphrases to each other, because being big fans of, what was that? What movie was that? Mean Girls, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So flip phones, Samsung's been forging ahead. We'll be talking in a moment about what their latest generation of phones is. But, with their Galaxy Fold and the Galaxy Flip lines, and then subsequent follow-ons by Motorola and Royal FlexPi, and more recently Google with foldable or flippable phones, folks are all over, what Samsung, got up their sleeves next. And we've seen them continue to iterate on the folding formats, whether it's like a book style, opening up like a book, or a flip style, kind of like the old timey flip phones in a sense. And then last week we had Samsung Galaxy Unpacked, where they unveiled the Z Flip 5, the Z Fold 5, some new tablets. One of the tablets is 14.6 inches. And so it's a big boy. They got the 11-inch and the big boy 14.6 inch as well. It seems that, as with anything on an annual refresh cycle, a lot of the updates seem to be incremental. One of the key updates on the Z Flip 5 is the much more usable, larger outside screen when you have the phone folded up, and you can do a lot more with that than the little tiny screen that was on there before. And I believe the Google Pixel Fold has almost pretty much a full-size screen on the outside as well. Again, Samsung is sticking more with a pretty vertical format for the folding for the Z Fold 5. It's narrower than Google's offering there. Google has yet to do a flip form factor. So I'll start with you, Will, on this, as we're seeing the refinement of these flippables and foldables. Are you getting intrigued, interested at all? Maybe if they could make them a little thinner, they're still a little chunky. What are your thoughts on what we're seeing from Samsung?
No, I'm not really very interested in this. My wife is. My wife likes Android, and she's looking at various folds and flips, but she still wants to go back to the Motorola Razr, and that's not this. So, she misses her old black flip phone from the early 2000s. So there's some nostalgia there, but I just still not convinced about the form factor or the screen on the outside. But I know that people want that, but yeah, I'm fine where I am. I'm going to stand pat.
Well, one of the key advancements with both the fold and the flip is the improved hinge designs, which is great to see. So they've eliminated the gaps when you fold them close. And I believe that the Google Pixel Fold had no gap as well. So the hinge engineering is getting better and better. Tasia, you've had a bit of time to play with the Google Pixel Fold so far, and we've talked about that a bit. How from what we're seeing from the latest Samsung offerings, how do you think they're comparing? Because Google's just taking their first stab at this now. What's your take on Samsung's latest?
Well, I mean, Samsung was already ahead of Google, so this is Google's just first gen foldable model, and they kind of beat Samsung to it in terms of no gapping on when it's folded. And so there were some form factor things that Google did really well right out of the gate, probably listening to feedback from Samsung Fold users. But y'all know how I feel about the folds of the flips. I can't do it. I mean, this is a heavy device. I think it's heavy. I think it's bulky, and that's even without a case. I just don't see my use case for it, but I've had a lot of comments on the video I did on this, and these folds and these flips are having a moment, and people are either super for or super against. And one of my good friends, her husband wants a flip so bad. And when I asked her, well, why? It's exactly what Will said. They're playing into that nostalgia factor. And we all remember our first phones. We're oh, these cool flip phones and all this kind of stuff. And I think people are romanticizing it a little bit. We moved away from that for a reason. Having a stupid tiny little screen on the front like that, give me a break. And I know we're going to
hot, strong coffee right there. Yeah.
I mean, I know we're going to get into, a little bit of what people like is that for content creators on these folds and these flips, you can create things a little bit easier in terms of you don't need to have a tripod necessarily. You can prop it up in either a tabletop or tent mode or things like this where, you have a 90-degree angle or a tent angle that you can set your timer, take your photos and your videos on your own. But it's cool. Is that your selling point? I don't need a little square, indicator on the front. And then I'm still flipping it open to really utilize a device. I am sticking with a slab phone. Jamie's probably going to say he likes change.
I do like change. Tasia, how did you know? For me, it's more, again, I think you could, I'm still not sure about them myself either. I don't say, oh, I got to change my phone and I got to get a flip phone. I'm still more interested in the one that folds out into more of a tablet. Again, use case wise, hey, that's kind of a neat idea. I kind of like that idea, just to be able to draw things on there and have a bigger form factor. But I watched the video of that Z. I'm going to say Z because I'm a Canadian. So the Z
Yes.
Flip 5 and the flip type phone, and I was kind of watching. I'm like, oh wow, it is kind of cool. Just to be able to pull it out of your pocket, and it's got the little screen on there. You can just do quick little things with it if you need to, and put it back. It's almost like having one of the watches, but you don't have it on your wrist. So if you need quick access to something and it's right there, you've got all your messages, you've got your widgets, you've got your notifications, whatever it is. It's set up in a way that makes it almost forces you to use it like a simplified version of a phone. So it reminds me of kind of having a watch, but in your pocket at that point, which is kind of what a phone is anyways these days. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I haven't run out and bought one, but I like, again, for me, it's about the improving of technology. It's just the way that people and companies create new things, and they get some people to buy it, and it creates new technologies and new ways of using technology that nobody really thought of before. And then all of a sudden, the phones get thinner and thinner, and eventually it becomes, oh well, yeah, you've got your rolling screen. That's going to be the next thing, right? You have a screen that rolls out from your wrist, and all of a sudden you can do that kind of thing. So it's an iterative step still. But for Google to get into it, and these other companies to get into it, and for it to not have just fallen flat on its face, I think that probably means there is a market there. And again, if it's not us, because we're all old, except Tasia, forever 21.
Bless you.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm kind of, we're maybe not as used to the new ideas, the new ways that things need to be done. The content creating, again, might be super useful that way. And Sydney Sweeney apparently is advertising it as well. So that's a +1 for me too.
Who?
Sydney,
So they think Gen Z is going to get in on it because of Sydney Sweeney, and it's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Was she in Euphoria or something? Is that
she's
who
in
this is?
Euphoria? She's been in a bunch
I
of
see.
different stuff. Yeah.
Well, so to that point, Tasia, this whole push is being targeted at Gen Z, and you are our millennial representative here, but you're closer to Gen Z or Gen Z than we olds are here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so and that target market never really had the experience of flip phones at all. So you could say, well, millennials and even Gen Xers, we had flip phones of a sort, the old style without screens all over the place. So there could be some nostalgia factor. But when they're targeting the younger generations, be it Gen Z or alphas, as they get into the phone territory, this is something new and exciting. They've only ever known slab phones. So the question is, will this work? Because, well, this is something different. Because part of finding your identity as you're growing up is pushing back against the mainstream a little bit. You kind of want something different, whether it's the clothes you wear or the type of music you listen to, et cetera, et cetera. So having something that's a bit different like this. Now, it's still not cheap. We're talking, especially at the high end with the foldables, we're talking $18.99 US for the Z Fold 5, but the Z Flip 5 is only $9.99 US. These are the starting prices at the base capacity levels, of course. So, Tasia, being closest to that age level, and Jamie, you've got sons at that age level. Mm-hmm. Do you think they're going to have any luck here targeting the youngs?
So, I was doing some research on, and I should recon my niece and nephew, but I was doing some research on like how much of the Gen Z population are Android users. And it is a shrinking number. So my argument immediately would be that the younger consumers prefer iPhone. And like when I look at my familial unit and like people, my niece and nephew and stuff, I don't care what bells and whistles or how you want to sell it, Sydney Sweeney. My niece ain't switching from iPhone and be the only one in her group chat with green bubbles on Android. It's not going to happen. I will do a follow-up for you next week. I will ask my younger generations in my family, but to me, it's a hard sell. And it's like, once the novelty of it wears off for the slight, few Gen Z users that even are on, like, not on iOS, I should say. It's like, you know,
What is the age range of that sample size that you're talking about there?
I just was looking up just like all of Gen Z
Okay.
and how much of them are on like Android phones as opposed to like iPhone. So it's basically like Generation Z makes up 34% of all iPhone owners in the US and only 10% of Samsung users. So, you know, there's other follow-up questions like, does Gen Z use Android?
Well, the only problem with that is Samsung's only a partial amount of
Yes.
Android phones.
But
that's
that's what I'm saying though. So like if
Samsung
they're
is
not
the
even
number one by far. Sure.
Yeah, but that's my point. If they're not even in the Android ecosystem, that's a big ask to ask them to switch from iOS, because you guys know, like, for you guys that are on iOS, it's like once you're in that ecosystem and you're iMessaging and FaceTiming with people, and like that's how you communicate with friends, especially when you have long distance relationships, that's a huge ask to be like, oh, for a feature to have something on like an outside screen and I can take my own video with it. Like, get out of here.
The only thing is I've noticed so I've got boys that are, how old are they? Oh boy.
Early mid-20s?
25 and 23. 20, 26? No, he'll be 26. 25 and 23. So they're young men and, you know, young adults. Both Android users. They have some friends who are iOS, some friends who have actually moved away from iOS. It used to be everybody was iOS, and then they moved away because they didn't care. They didn't care. They're not as brand loyal, maybe, as some people are. Mostly, and these are mostly boys too. So I think with girls, they lock in more on the brand and making sure that they're part of the clique or the clique of girls who all have the same. They got to have the same messaging. But what I've also noticed with my son's girlfriends, one of them's an iOS user, and she uses mostly WhatsApp. She doesn't use the regular whatever the iOS texting is. So more and more, because there's long distance relationships, there's different countries going on. Most other countries of the world, of course, as we know, they mostly use WhatsApp. And interestingly, actually, with my sons, because everybody has a disparate sort of messaging ecosystem that they actually use Facebook Messenger because they all have a Facebook account. So it seems to me that everybody sort of gravitates to what makes sense in their particular group. But yeah, I'd be interested to see the follow-up from Eutasia and hear what happens there.
Yeah, because I'm curious. You bring up another point, like if you were an Android user when your kids got their devices, chances are you're putting them in the same ecosystem. Sure. Not necessarily, but like, you know, so I think about that in terms of my friends too, that like they've been all in on like Samsung Folds for a while.
Yeah.
And you know, I think about that in terms of like the devices they're using and they're giving their kids. But interestingly enough, they still use iPads.
Sure.
But all the phones are Androids in their house, but then it's iPad. It's wild. So that would be another interesting side study we could do to see like how much influence does if your family unit is already on one ecosystem.
Well, what was interesting, just as another aside, my wife, she wanted an iPhone to start. And so she actually started with an iPhone, and she had that for a few years. But eventually she actually got kind of annoyed because everything she was using was Google based. And it was kind of annoying for her to use Google stuff on iPhone. It wasn't native. It was, and Apple kind of forces you to use some Apple stuff in some ways rather than make it seamless Google. So in the end, she's like, yeah, I don't really care about using an iPhone. I'm going to go to Google. And then now she's on a Pixel, and she hasn't looked back. So again, everybody just whatever suits them is really what it comes down to. Kids are more brand loyal, I think, and Apple, that's what they're a giant marketing machine, and they make a good product, and and they lock people into their iMessage thing and make it so you get green bubbles instead of blue on purpose, right? They make it so they make it uncomfortable. So it's just marketing, really.
Will, you probably have the exposure to the youngest cohort with your nieces and nephews. What trends have you seen among them as regards iPhone or use versus Android phone usage?
I mean, I think they're a mixed family. I think they're mostly on Apple devices, but I believe my brother-in-law is on an Android, and I think one of my nieces is on an Android, but most of the rest of them are on Apple. But they started off with like iPads and stuff when they were first allowed to get on devices. So I think that might have influenced some of them to continue on with Apple devices. But they use WhatsApp a lot too. In our family, you know, on my wife's side, we all message each other on WhatsApp, and that's been the most steady, partly because of, you know, various situations where it's unclear about cell phone connectivity and all that kind of stuff. So that's always been, you know, I guess the easiest way. And also, my sister-in-law, she's a lot on the Google ecosystem, and I guess that just works better for her with a lot of the stuff that she's doing. And my father-in-law is on Android devices mostly.
Well, it sounds like we need to get these people on some 14.6-inch Galaxy Tab S9s. Biggest
Sounds like
tablet
they
you
should
ever
all
seen.
watch my YouTube channel and
Yes.
On their 14.6-inch.
like just make it a laptop. Am I right? What are we doing, people?
Especially if you have a keyboard case on it.
Just
All right.
because you can doesn't mean you should.
In other gadget news, speaking of market dominance, there has been Techniques has owned the turntable market for so long in terms of you know, the SL 1200 and its various generations over time for club DJs. But Will, there is a new contender here from Pioneer DJ. Can you tell us about the PLX Cross 12?
Yeah, so this kind of caught a number of people off guard this morning. It got announced, and I was reading quite a few articles and watching some videos on it. People are really impressed, people who have gotten their hands on review models. You know, it's got bells and whistles, but the actual core of the turntable is apparently quite impressive. You know, it doesn't do a lot of flutter. It keeps its speed quite well. So people have been really impressed. As just a turntable, it almost kind of beats a 1200. So they're kind of impressed. The other thing that's really cool about it is that it really relies on the center weight that you put on top of it, that you more typically see with things like 45s or audiophiles do that a lot. So it's quite unusual to see that in like a club turntable or a scratching turntable, to have that sort of center weight. I don't know if people are familiar with this, but this is something that audiophiles tend to put on turntables to sort of even out and reduce the resonance. So you get sort of less background noise, less loss of the signal, because you have the needle touching the record. So it's really important to cut down vibrations. So this is unusual in this kind of turntable, but part of what that weight does is it actually allows, and we've talked about this before in the show, DVS, which is basically the digital signal that allows you to DJ through a laptop. So you don't have to carry hundreds of records around. You can actually, you can just have your laptop with, you know, millions of song files on it, MP3s, WAV files, and you can play it that way. So it's a huge advantage. Tristan, you probably remember back in the day having to bring crates of records around.
Why do you think I have a bad back?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things that's really enticing about this. And it actually becomes almost like a hybrid digital turntable, or they're calling it a hybrid digital turntable, where you don't even need the tone arm, as you're seeing there, because of that counterweight actually allows you to use DVS. So that counterweight is tracking the position of the record. And so it's a little bit of magic there. There's a bunch of other cool features that will bore all of you to tears, but DJs are very excited about them. So it is quite a stunning piece of tech. The one point that everyone is kind of a little upset about is that it's $1,300 US, which is kind of expensive for a turntable when you're looking at some of the competition being $900 US, $1,000 US, $1,100 US. So this is, a couple $100 more, but it's the newest shiny, and some sort of very interesting features. And the other cool thing, one more thing about that weight, is it actually magnetizes to the spindle, so it doesn't move. It actually locks in place, almost like charging your phone. So it's really a bunch of cool, innovative things went into this, and I know this isn't exactly the thrust of Momentous, but I just think this is a cool piece of tech, and I wanted to mention it. And we all know I'm a beat DJ head, so I love this kind of stuff.
So it's too bad that Gray wasn't here to offer his thoughts on it. We are linking to a breakdown by a fellow named Mojax, who is a DJ. He's on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, X and the like, and he gives a pretty in-depth review of it. The cool thing about this sort of device, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, is that you could just use it like a regular turntable, throw your records on there, use the tone arm, or you could, not use the tone arm, just use one of your, what are those generic kind of discs called for DJing and scratching? Like when you're doing like Serato and whatnot, like.
Oh yeah, so it would be the Serato tone vinyl to actually, you mean, use the DVS.
And apparently with this one, you don't even need that, right? Because
you don't.
Because of the magnetic weight.
So you can use it three ways. You can use it as a regular turntable, no DVS. You can use it as with DVS control vinyl for some reason, and then you don't need the tone arm at all. So there's three different ways, whatever way you want it to do. And this is
and this will work for like regular like club DJing as well as like scratch DJing. You think it's got the tools for scratch DJing too?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see more on the scratching. It looks promising. Mojax isn't quite a scratch DJ. He's more of a club DJ, but he did a little bit of scratching and it seemed okay. I'd like to see a hardcore scratch person go at it, but we'll see. He did some really interesting breakdowns of, all, like you say, all the different ways of doing it. And so I really recommend his breakdown because he goes detail and it is a turntable and also goes through all the technology about what it can do. And it really is very versatile, and it has a lot of good features in it to reduce resonance, so that it's good for a club in that way. Some turntables are not very good for club environments because they allow too much vibrations and things like that. And some people spend thousands of dollars on aftermarket stuff to reduce vibrations and stuff like that. So
wait a sec. Didn't Mark tell us that we should feel the vibration?
He did. I think he might have been talking about something else.
Okay.
What was he talking about, Will? I have no context. I'm an old.
Well,
I think Will's going to be asking for this for Christmas. Not the vibration.
You got to get a pair of them, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. Oh
boy.
I know.
Well, moving from scratching records to scratching an itch that mankind has had for decades, if not centuries, about life elsewhere in the universe. As a quick lead-in, apparently was it the James Webb telescope has captured what appears to be a question mark.
Oh, for Pete's sake!
In space. That's
the Riddler.
He's up there. Exactly
right. He rearranged planets.
What is even happening there? So it's found buried within an image of Herbig Haro 46/47, which is a tightly bound pair of actively forming stars located around almost 1,500 light years from Earth. So, I mean, that's kind of cool and all. And of course, humans are pattern recognition machines. Part of that pattern recognition we've been doing for ages and ages now is like seeing things in the skies and assigning some sort of intelligence or volition to them. And over the last few years, there have been more and more quote unquote leaks about various UFO activity, now known as UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. Well, we just had a congressional hearing in the United States last week where we had a number of people testifying under oath regarding what they have firsthand knowledge of and secondhand knowledge of regarding said UAPs. Tasia, you want to start us off with some of the main things we learned in this hearing?
Yeah, I want to preface this by telling everybody these weren't just like random people like who got a congressional hearing. So the main guy is like a former US intelligence officer. So this is not, just Joe Schmo off the street. And there's like kind of like a small group of them. There's a US Navy commander, right? And an F-18 pilot. So here's the gist. They said that they have witnessed things multiple times, and details are a little hazy, which we'll get to in a second, of all the gaps in the story. But multiple times that they have identified these UAPs, basically. And they claim that they also are like working backwards. The US government is kind of working backwards to determine some like crash site contents of a UAP.
And using wreckage to try to figure out the technology and maybe build stuff on their own
Reverse
to mimic it.
engineer, yeah.
Right. So I think for me, number one, the standout thing was that we even had a congressional hearing. Like, I don't know if everybody else is like, holy shit. Like,
I watched it live.
Yeah. Like, this is actually happening. So that was number one. Number two was the fact that he testified that they found non-human biologics. I've been practicing saying
dogs,
that word.
Cats.
Right.
Yeah.
But they just characterize them as, quote, non-human.
They
So
taught
that
a
was
cat-
the
They
other
taught a cat to drive a
bombshell.
flying saucer. It's like Toonces.
Ugh. That was the other bombshell for me, because it was just like, wait, what is this happening? So here's, I know Jamie and I are probably going to get into details a little bit here, but the other interesting thing to me was that, and there's a really good Time article on this, that there were some gaps, like a little bit in his story, where when pressed on certain issues, Grush, is that his last
Grush,
name?
yeah.
Yeah. He, instead of being able to answer some questions, he would just say like it's a matter of like US intelligence, and it would be giving up like secure, oh my God, there's a fruit fly, secure information. Almost swallowed that fly. Right. Or is it? And so that's kind of the question here, is like, are the gaps in the story really because you'd be leaking like intelligence that you're not allowed to leak? Or is it because this is kind of hogwash and some other people in the intelligence community are saying it's hogwash? But is it? I mean, we just had a congressional hearing. I will say also this before, Jamie, I'm curious to know what you think.
Oh, you'll hear it, don't worry.
The Time article also mentioned that they were talking to some, experts, if you will, and people from like inside the government. And they basically said like, if these UAPs like this even exist, they are so way far advanced from anything we're doing to be able to enter our space, drop down, leave stuff, pick stuff up, do it, and like bang, be gone again in like a second. Like that, we haven't even like dreamt of spacecraft or any type of thing like that. So if these actually existed, like what we're all being like, aliens, oh my God, then the question would be, wouldn't they have just, A, would they even know we exist because we're so far away in the universe? B, if they did and they come down and they have these advanced spacecrafts, aren't they way more advanced than us? And like they could have just taken over by now. There's a lot to unpack, you guys. It's wild. And I also don't know what non-human means, because exactly, but what does it mean? Like, and what did the contents look like? Because I'm picturing like Men in Black, like green slime. Like I need to know what we're testing.
Alien Autopsy, the documentary.
Jamie, help.
Mhm.
Are
Yeah, well,
aliens
I'm
here?
happy to jump in. So I've dug a little deeper on this to try and understand what's going on, why things were said a certain way. So this David Grush, again, intelligence officer, he actually, so the reason that this congressional hearing happened was because of whistleblower legislation that has just been introduced in the US Congress that allows people to come forward from places like the intelligence community without fear of repercussion if they follow the proper rules and to be able to testify in front of Congress. So what David Grush did is he actually went through the proper rules, went to a certain department, I can't remember what it was called, and said, "Look, I'm gonna whistleblow. I'm going to be saying these things. I want to make sure that what I am saying is stuff that is not going to get me put in jail." So the reason that he was able to say what he was able to say and what he said he was unable to say is because everything that he said, he was told he was allowed to say in public. Everything else apparently is stuff that was classified, was able to be told and showed to some senators, some congressional members who are part of a secret classified group. And that's why he said, "Hey, I can tell you afterwards, but I can't tell you in public because I will be put in jail." So that's the reason for some of that. Yeah, there was some fascinating stuff in the congressional hearing. The biologics was one thing, but like Tristan says, yeah, cats and dogs are non-human biologics. So who knows what that means? He really made a point of saying through the hearing that we have to make sure that he didn't want to say aliens because that's not necessarily what we're dealing with here. There is some theory that this could be an intelligence that it could be ocean living that exists, that evolved millions of years ago around the time of the dinosaurs and could be living under the ocean. And there's been lots of UAP media transmedium UAPs that go from air to water quite a bit. A lot of stuff in the water that happens with UAPs out in the Pacific Ocean. So, Tristan, it looks like
you see they live in a pineapple under the sea.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And so another thing that was interesting too, he said he was asked when did this sort of start, and a lot of people think of Roswell as being the Roswell incident back in New Mexico in the 40s, I believe, right after the nuclear explosions started really happening in the US. But apparently he says this goes back to the 30s and there's speculation, and this is a well-known theory, but there's some corroborating evidence for this, that the Italians actually discovered a crashed UAP, and then then they had it and they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And then this gets a little far-fetched, but once World War II ended, the Vatican actually took a UAP from the Italians, and then now the US has it. So there's a whole bunch of there's just, it's getting to this point, and I know I know Will needs to actually see the evidence, and as do I. There's still no evidence. This Grush guy, who's the intelligence officer, he's never seen a UAP/UFO. He's never seen these crashed spacecraft. He's never seen these biologics, but he's spoken to people who have seen this stuff and who work within those systems, and he's willing to share the names of those people to these congressional members, the Gang of Eight, and say, look, these are the people that are both regular witnesses and hostile witnesses who will actually be able to tell you what they've seen and can tell you where crashed UAP are being stored in the US. He said this in the hearing. So there's something going on. And
including a very large, like football field size of craft.
Yep.
Like,
yeah. When you dig into this, you start reading the stuff, and there's just things after thing after thing that kind of, it's all piling on. But there's a lot of serious people now who have a lot to lose, who are coming forward and saying, look, this is just what I know. I'm just telling you this stuff because I think it should be out there, and I don't want to go to jail, but we're at the point now where I think we need to know that there's stuff going on. Some of the videos I'm starting to see out there on the internet is kind of like, oh, whoa, what is that? What is that orb that seems to have no propulsion technology that's actually flying through the air at very high speeds? So there seems to be something significant going on. And the more you dig into it, you can go down some pretty crazy rabbit holes, like that Vatican UAP thing. That's a little nuts, but crazier things, I suppose.
I just want to know if it was escorted by the Vatican Guard with their
Mhm.
their stripy outfits and pantaloons.
Yes, exactly. But it is, you know, the reason. So the reason one of the or a couple of the Navy pilots and Navy commanders were there was they don't really actually care about UFOs and aliens. They don't care any about that stuff. What they care about is the safety of their fellow pilots. So one of them is actually he's started up a task force to say, look, this is for aviation safety, and we have a lot of pilots who have reported dozens, if not hundreds, of encounters with these. And even in the congressional hearing, one of them said, "Yeah, there was a gray cube inside of a transparent sphere that almost collided with my plane that was traveling at 0 knots in high wind, so it was staying stationary in place, and we almost crashed into this thing. And we're running into more and more of this stuff. We need to make sure our pilots are safe." That's the reason for their they're joining in on this congressional hearing. Not about, I want to see if it's aliens, I want to meet the aliens. No, it's a different kind of thing. So again, these are serious people looking to try and just understand what's going on. Whatever it is, maybe it is technology that the Chinese have developed and they've just kept it super secret up until now. But they're able to do this kind of stuff. Or maybe the US is testing their own crazy skunk works kind of stuff.
Just like the stealth fighter back in the day. And people
yeah,
but
those things were always done in test ranges, and other parts of the US government, US military were always informed, hey, there's going to be some testing going on here. You have to stay away. In this case, these guys are running into this stuff all the time. So speculation is it could be, if it is some sort of non-human technology, it's just probes. And that's why they crash. Because maybe there's probes that have been sent, von Neumann probes. That's a whole nother thing. I won't get into that, but basically self-replicating probes that can basically go from, system to system, self-replicate, and then do more exploring. And then they'll self-replicate and do more exploring. And eventually it colonizes a galaxy. And it happens surprisingly quickly. So those are some interesting ideas as well. But there's more to the story that has not been released, and that's what they're digging into now. And they're digging into it. There's some people now that are like, oh, wait a second, what's going on here? I thought this was all a big joke, as you guys all said to me when I always brought this up on the show.
I didn't say that.
I know.
Sir.
Will did.
No,
I didn't. I never said
No.
My honest
He just doesn't want more stuff to
like,
worry about.
I know.
I don't blame him.
My question though is like, what do we actually think it is? Because I
doesn't matter.
Wondering why people are not freaking the hell out about this. But it's like, is it actually just, China or Russia or somebody has better technology than we do, and this stuff's just falling, to Earth or whatever, or almost colliding with, what our guys are doing out there. But it's like, what in the what?
Well, the reason being, and this is a fair argument against this whole situation, there is no solid evidence yet. All the evidence is either doesn't exist or it's being hidden so well that we can't see it. Once there is some evidence, so again, I'm hearing rumblings in the back channels of different stuff that within a month or so, there might be some sort of acknowledgement. Hey, there is something going on. And you know what? The US government has actually said that. They've actually said, hey, look, there's stuff going on in the skies. We don't know what it is. They have admitted that. So, but now there could be this secret black program that nobody knows really exists that is finally kind of going to come to light, and they'll say, look, okay, we do know some stuff going on here. Here's some things. But because even some of these Congress people have said, look, I've been privy to some information that I'm not allowed to share. If you were able to see this stuff, it would blow your minds. They said this in the congressional hearing. And they're not allowed to share it either, but they have seen it. And so unless they're being duped by some great CGI, who knows? But most of the stuff seems to be from actual pilots who have taken their own pictures and shown it around and said, look, this is what I saw. And because everything else gets confiscated, but they've been able to take pictures and then show it to other people and say, I'm the one who took this picture. This is what I saw. It was crazy. And so there's weird things afoot at the Circle K.
And this is why everybody just needs to make sure, verify where you're getting information from.
Yes.
Like, because anybody can make any type of video now. So like,
trust no one.
trust nobody.
Yeah, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't. You should always. Again, I'm fully expecting it to be a U.S. Technology that we just didn't know existed, and I'm fully.
Which is
and
cool, and that's what I'm like.
That's still cool,
badass,
yeah.
America, do it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. There you go. And again, for me, it's an unknown. It's a mystery. I'm always a big fan of mysteries, and this seems like a really fascinating one because
Agreed.
it's been pervasive in our culture for a century, and we kind of there's a reason it's existed, and maybe it's all just myth and mythos and people just wishful thinking and hoping that there's somebody out there in the universe who's going to come and save us from all of the bad stuff we've done to our planet, blah blah blah. Or it could actually be something legitimate again, and I hope it is. I'd love to know if there's actually aliens, and although I think the discovery of phosphine on Venus might actually be showing us that there's actual life in our own solar system that we're unaware of. But that's for another day. That's for another day.
Well, I, for one, am just waiting for Jesse Ventura and the late Alex Trebek to show up at my door with hats and trench coats.
I get that reference so well. Yeah.
The X-Files was a documentary series, everyone.
There you go.
You heard it here. All right. Well, if you want to get your alien fix, we have a couple of pieces of media that are coming your way. There is a movie starring Ben Kingsley called Jules, I believe it is, which is about an elderly man whose quiet life is disrupted by a UFO crash in his garden. And he basically adopts the survivor of said crash, a friendly little alien named Jules. And if you would rather something more in the animated realm, some of you may be familiar with a web comic known as Strange Planet. And coming soon to Apple TV Plus is a Strange Planet animated series. Because why not, I guess. So watch this space. Maybe some of us will see some of these things at some point. But Strange Planet is being produced by some of the folks behind Rick and Morty, so that bodes well. It looks like it's reasonably inoffensive for the most part. And I've just realized that I have not been actually sharing the imagery here, the trailers, but here's a little bit of Strange Planet and a little bit of Jules with Ben Kingsley. So yeah, coming soon to a theater and or Apple TV Plus streaming service near you. So time for a palate cleanser. What do you say, Will?
Sure.
Our picks of the week, starting with Tasia.
Okay, guys, I did it. Barbie is my pick of the week. I won't give anything away. I'm just going to say I gave it a solid 7 out of 10. And then people in my circle were a little irritated that I only gave it a 7.
Oh.
That's not a knock on it. As you guys know, it takes a lot to make me leave my house and go to the movie theater. Margot Robbie is fantastic. Ryan Gosling absolutely crushed. I know I don't know if you guys remember, like when we first saw sneak peeks of Barbie movie and we all had questions about Ryan Gosling playing Ken. We talked about this. I know I didn't dream it. We talked about this. And we were like, I don't know. I don't picture him as Ken. Ugh. Well, I was incorrect.
Is that what we sounded like? Oh boy.
It was. He absolutely stole the show. It was good. Anyway,
it's not very feminist of you.
Yeah, patriarchy's so crafty, right?
Yeah, Ken stole the Barbie movie. Oh my god.
No, I think he really did such a good job. But I said I liked Margot Robbie in it, and there's a couple other people in it too that I really liked. And without giving anything away, I thought storyline fabulous. I hope they win the Oscar for set decoration. There were just a few lulls, and that's why I knocked it down a couple pegs. You know, you can't be perfect. But overall, I think everybody should go see it.
Now, I've heard some reports that of people taking their young children to it, and strangely enough, not strangely enough, it's like we've been checking out the theater listings to see it sometimes, and the theaters have been booked up like crazy, like morning, noon, night, like to actually see it. So it's telling me that it's got a pretty broad appeal. Apparently it's, I think, doubled the box office receipts of Oppenheimer, the other half of the Barbenheimer meme. I mean, Oppenheimer is holding its own, but Barbie is just on another level. I guess it's just a bit more accessible for more folks. What but there have been reports of people with taking their their young children to see it because it's a Barbie movie. What how bad can it be? And be like, what?
It is PG-13 from what I understand.
Yeah, it's PG-13. So I mean, it's on you if you're taking your 6 or 7-year-old,
Yeah.
I suppose. Any thoughts on that? Having seen it yourself?
There's like a couple like funny comments in there
Mhm.
about genitalia.
Hilarious.
I can say that without giving anything away. And like,
Okay.
there's some stuff like honestly, kids that if you're bringing a kid that young, they wouldn't get anyway. Like, do you know what I mean? It wouldn't be like, oh, like, no, it's not like if you're offended by the Barbie movie, you got other issues.
All right.
I mean, I went to the first Venom movie, and there was a kid in a few rows in front, and I also went to a Deadpool movie where there was a kid.
Yeah.
So, and the Venom movie, I think the kid was actually escorted out crying after about 25 minutes.
Yikes.
So there you go.
So none of that happened at your showing there, Tasia?
No children
No
crying,
crying?
but it was packed at a weird time too. Like every time it was packed that we tried to book to see it. So, I do recommend. It's got a really good message, so I do recommend everybody, gender regardless, go see it.
That's how we identify.
She's so like Margot Robbie is just so good in everything she does. It's kind of messed. Like I feel like she's so. If you look at her catalog of work.
Maybe she's a non-human biologic.
Maybe she is.
Her and Elon.
Margot Robbie.
Good callback.
All right. Well, speaking of otherworldly things, what's your pick of the week? Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, but not the movie.
No. So this is not super new, but it's relatively new to me. It's a video game, and it's really quite good if you enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's a bit of a mix between the comic books and the movies. The characters look a little bit different. They're sort of something new and original and fresh, but sort of capture a bit of the essence of both the comic books and the movie. So it's fun to see a slightly different interpretation, and it's a really enjoyable game. Some people have criticized that it doesn't look more like the movies, but I like that it's something a little bit.
You don't have to pay for the actors' likenesses that way.
Wow, yeah. But it also, part of that is also it's a blend between the comic books and the movies, so I enjoy that. So it's really highly recommended for me. It's on sale right now on Steam.
70% off of here.
Yeah, so check it out.
For those who are just listening, what would you characterize the style of gameplay? What is it, a first-person shooter, or is it something else?
It's kind of a third-person adventure. It's a little bit maybe like if anyone's played the Star Wars, I think it's Jedi Order. What was the most recent one? The one that just came out recently, the sequel to that. And it's also just a little bit like, it's slightly like some of those open world sort of third person, but it's a little bit more on rails.
Gotcha. All right. Jamie, your momentous pick this week.
A lawnmower.
Nice.
This is a robot lawnmower. So I have a little bit of personal experience with this one. This is one that my dad actually bought off the internet, and my mom was worried it was a scam.
Which model of this
It's
one?
The 5000.
The Luba AWD 5000. That's the big boy.
It's a big boy, yeah. So they live in an area. They have a smallish, medium lawn, but it's got a lot of hill to it, and so they wanted to. My dad's getting older, and he was getting sick of paying somebody a lot of money to come to their place and do a bit of mowing. And so he decided, you know what? I think it's time to see if I can get a lawnmower that would actually go up the steep hill. So we actually did some calculations. We worked out the slope and the rise and the run of the slope and everything to see if it would work.
Scientific approach. I love it.
Yeah, and made sure that it matched the specs, and it seemed to. And it's a fairly steep hill that they've got. And he's set this baby up, and if you scroll down, you can see lots of information about the actual mower itself, and you set it up with a base station, so it charges itself up. You have a central radio station so it knows where it is, and I believe it's also GPS based. And then you actually set the perimeter with your phone. You actually you like a little video game. You mark out where you want the mower to go at its perimeter, and then you say, in essence, go. And this thing, and you tell it how you want it to mow, and it'll do random mowing, unplanned cutting route, but it'll also do a planned cutting route, and it'll do crosshatch. It'll do whatever you like.
Oh, you like that one, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I like my lawns nice straight lines. And so this thing, he got it set up himself. He's a 76-year-old man. He does not do well with computers, and he was able to actually get this thing working before I even got there, and he loves it. He's named it Larry.
Like the bird.
Like the bird. Yeah, exactly. No, it's after a friend of his who passed away a few years ago, and this friend of his, one of his most relaxing things was getting on his riding mower and mowing his few acres of lawn. That was his relaxing time. So he decided that he would honor him with naming his lawnmower Larry. Anyways, this thing goes. It goes back.
This is the cutest story about a robot lawnmower I've ever heard.
So and now this thing, he said he set it to go on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. and then he got up and he looked out the window and it was just doing its thing and getting it all done. It does not, if you have cut down edges, it of course doesn't do edging like a weed whacker or something. You have to still go do your edges a little bit, but it mows your entire lawn without you even thinking about it. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty funky machine, and it looks kind of future. It is something you think you would see in an 80s movie that you'd think, oh yeah, that'll never happen. And it does the job.
It sounds like it may have been reverse engineered from a crashed craft.
Yeah,
what do you think?
That's classified. I'll tell you in a skiff later, which is something else. But that's UAP lingo at that point.
Super cool. So now, sorry, forgive me if I was daydreaming and missed it. What was that?
And not paying attention to me? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, what was the quality of the actual cut?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's got.
Okay.
I think it's got 3 spinning blades underneath, and you can raise it and lower it however you like. Actually, when I saw it the other day, it looked fantastic. It was just a nice even cut, and it's pretty hard to beat.
Well, I'm just putting it out there that my birthday's in a week. Just saying,
You guys are getting really expensive gift ideas going here.
Yeah. Well, Tristan's lawn is mostly moss, though, I thought. So.
Oh, no, it's been replaced by buttercups.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And now apples and plums. So
Right.
And cedar foliage. Anyhow, love it. When I grow up, I want to be, not only do I want to be a real boy, but I want a robot lawnmower as a friend. So you should paint a happy face on it.
Ooh, not a bad idea.
All right, we have a couple of late-breaking updates. Will, you remembered the name of that game?
Yes,
the Jedi game.
Jedi Survivor is the game that this is kind of like,
and this being the Guardians of the Galaxy game, yeah.
Jedi.
In the style, is that what you mean? What is?
Yeah, the style of gameplay, it was very reminiscent. For me, it's been a while since I played the original Jedi Survivor, but very much the sort of go and explore and figure out tasks and have a semi-open world. It's sort of like, it's a little bit on rails, meaning that they sort of control a little bit where you go, but you do have a fair bit of freedom.
So if the people check out the Guardians of the Galaxy game and they enjoy it, they may want to go back into the catalog and check out Star Wars Jedi Survivor as well. Other late-breaking developments, Tasia, I received a message from my lovely wife, Stephanie, and she was saying we're going to be going away sometime soon for a little bit, and she's browsing her Kindle for a new book. She's asking, should I choose one that is described as a romance novel inspired by the songs of Taylor Swift?
Yes. 100% yes.
All right, I will pass
Can't
that.
believe she has to ask the question.
I will
And then
pass along-
also make her share the link with me.
Was that written by friend of the show?
the book, yeah. We should
Probably written by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Yes, Taylor's version. Anyhow, my pick of the week, real quick here, was had the opportunity to go for a little date night and saw Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 by the produced and starring the savior of the modern blockbuster movie industry, none other than Tom Cruise. Stephanie and I rewatched all the previous Mission Impossible movies beforehand, and so it was all fresh. The whole lore was fresh on our mind, and just as I recall, the first one was interesting, very different, directed by Brian De Palma. I think I may have mentioned previously, noted for erotic thrillers, more action than I recall, but it was a lot of fun. 2, still trash. Then J.J. Abrams directed 3, which was great, introduced some more stakes in there, and then 4, 5, and 6 just kept amping things up. And then we got to see 7, which is known as Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. And it did not disappoint. It probably could have been tightened up in a couple of places, but it was overall a good time. Jamie, you had an opportunity to see it as well.
I did. It happened to be with you and your lovely wife.
At the same date night, double date.
Night.
A double date, which was a little awkward. I mean, it's a dark theater, and I don't know whose hand I was holding, but
it was mine.
What was your thought on it real quick?
It was actually a lot of fun. Again, I like to just go and be entertained. I like a good popcorn movie. Again, I saw the Indiana Jones movie as well, and it was, it had its problems for sure, but it was, entertaining. But this was a better story, and it was more interesting. One of the things there, we seem to be reaching some sort of convergence now. I think with a lot of sci-fi stories are all about AI now. There's a big AI component in this, and it was an interesting storyline that mirrored a TV show called Mrs. Something.
Davis?
Mrs. Davis, yes. It's kind of had a similar vibe to it, although Mrs. Davis is a bit more comical and ridiculous. But yes, it was good. I'm not a big fan of, I don't think Tom Cruise personally, but as a movie star, man, he brings it. Him and Brad Pitt, I would say Brad Pitt brings it as well. And Leo DiCaprio.
Will, do you recognize this star who was?
Yeah, she plays Mantis.
Very good. Yeah,
I don't know what her name is, but
Tom Clementif or something like that.
Something like that. I would never. Yeah. Stephanie recognized her, and with her eyes not blacked out, I could barely recognize her. And no antennae.
Yeah, I'm keen to see this movie. I love the Mission Impossible.
I recommend.
I recommend for sure. It's if you just like a fun action thriller kind of thing. Yeah, it's good stuff.
And last but not least, we have one project this week by the lovely and talented Tasia Custodi, who's here to tell us about her latest YouTube video.
Yes, my latest video is all about the Google Pixel Fold. And really, is it worth it? Should you buy it? So I dive into all of the features and the tech specs and the software specs and what I think the use case could be, and my final verdict at the end. So you have to watch to find out. I'm sure you all can guess.
I think I already know what your thing is, but I'm going to watch it. Tasia,
I will say.
I want to learn something. I want to learn something about foldables.
Like and subscribe. I'm going to say,
like and subscribe. And not to toot my own horn, but it's actually a really good video.
Yeah.
So, pretty proud of it.
Your videos are always excellent, Tasia. I do try and...
Yes, toot your horn.
Mm-hmm. Toot toot.
I like how the bandwidth kind of frapped out on you just as you said horn, Will. It said, toot your horn. Did you plan that? Horn. Is that a DJ effect?
He's so talented.
So Tasia, we got to get you on the Samsung PR list so you can do some direct
comparisons. I know, because I've got the Google Pixel tablet review coming this Thursday.
Oh, do you?
All right.
Very exciting.
Game changer.
Can I throw
Game
one
changer.
more thing out there? This is very random, but you brought up DJs, so I'm just going to bring this up. There's this wonderful TikTok video of this woman asking what DJs do, and then she's crying for some reason, and it's become this thing where like 26 million people viewed this TikTok video, and now DJs around the world have turned her into various songs.
Brilliant.
I am enjoying it so much. So if you have some time, seek out some of these videos. I would like to know more about why she was so upset that she had to cry and ask what DJs do. But yeah, I follow a lot of people who are actively remixing and doing all sorts of fun things with it. It's kind of one of these fun challenges. So I really recommend seeking that out.
She's like the Leave Britney Alone
Yeah.
of the DJ world.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that? Hello.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
That was the beginning of the fall of Western civilization.
Yes.
Someone should do leave Taylor alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any volunteers?
Taylor's
Do not
fine.
come for my queen, because I will come for you.
Well, I thought Beyonce was the queen.
They can both be queens.
Oh,
Tasha,
fight.
you
No,
need
they're
Mhm.
epic, and they're both crushing it.
to,
Are
Tasha, you
dancing,
need to watch.
Tasia? Or are you
Breaking
having a
records.
seizure?
They're breaking records. They're
Ta-
slaying. There's
Tasha,
queens
you-
everywhere you look. Yes,
Oh,
Will.
boy.
You need to watch the Electric Mayhem. There's a part where the Mayhem fans get in a fight with like the Swifties and the Beaver, whatever they're called, and all the
What?
different fans.
Oh, the
all
believers?
the fan groups are
Believers?
attacking
The beavers.
the Electric Mayhem.
If anybody learns anything
The
from this
Beaver
podcast,
group.
Believers.
the believers,
The
Yeah.
Believers. Yes.
Yeah.
But like, if anybody takes anything away from this podcast, let it be this: don't ever mess with the power of Swifties. We literally caused an earthquake.
I heard
okay?
about that, yeah.
So if you don't think Swifties have power, think again.
I have
What
no idea what
you're
you're talking
coming
about.
after.
Send us a link and we'll
Google
put it in
it.
the show notes.
Google it.
That's a lot of work. All right, guys, we did it. Thank you, Jamie, so much for joining us, and Tasia and
Happy to
Will.
help.
As always, if you want to find out more about Momentous, you can find us at momentous.tv/links, the team members at momentous.tv/team, and momentous.tv/podcast for the audio spectacular. Like, subscribe, comment, leave ratings and reviews, do all the things. And we hope you're